Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Jingliu, the long-awaited Ice Queen, is here, or at least soon to be here, and in this video we're going to go through her kit. So she is an ice character that follows the path of destruction, meaning she's a pretty universal DPS. So with that, let's get into her kit. As per usual, the basic attack is just a single hit of damage, so we'll again look past that and go into the skill and the ultimate. Now, we're going to look at these together because they're both kind of mundane parts of her kit. The skill being a single hit of slightly higher damage, but the skill does in fact give us one stack of syzygy, which is going to come into play in just a moment. And then going on to the ultimate, we have a single hit of damage with two adjacent enemies also being hit and also giving us one stack of syzygy. Again, pretty generic stuff for the skill and ultimate until we get to the talent. Once we get to the talent, we have a lot to read, and this is essentially where those syzygy stacks come into play. So, once you have two syzygy stacks, Jingliu will enter the spectral transmigration state, which then proceeds to give her 100% action advancement, so she gets another turn, and then also increases her crit rate by a flat 50%, which is absolutely spectacular. Jingliu then gains and can only use the following skill, Moon on Glacial River, which is the evolution of her skill, which is now what we get into using. Now, taking a look at that new skill, we've got Moon on Glacial River, which again, it's just a single hit of damage on the primary target with two adjacent enemies being hit, but this time it consumes one stack of syzygy and does not consume a skill point, so this character is quite low on skill consumption, or skill point consumption I should say, which is always really good. But the talent doesn't end there. When Jingliu uses an attack in this spectral transmigration state, no matter what the attack is, ultimate or skill or basic attack, all of them work, she consumes HP from all other allies equal to 4% of their respective max HP. Bear in mind, this cannot kill your other allies, which is so far quite interesting, but why do they lose HP? Well, it's for this last part. Jingliu's attack increases based on 540% of the total HP consumed from all allies in this instance, capped at 180% of her base attack until the attack ends. That's a lot to take in, but essentially, the more HP that Jingliu consumes from the rest of your team, the more attack she's gonna get, which is overall really good. Furthermore, syzygy stacks can stack up to 3 times, and when you have 0, you exit the transmigration state, which is incredibly good. Now, going on to this, I want to say one thing about the talent is that it's a lot to take in, but it's very powerful, and much like Yan Qing, who has a bit of a crit damage boost naturally through his ultimate, Jingliu has a natural crit rate boost through her talent, which is going to make her very easy to build, or at least early game to build. But another thing I want to say is that there's a key bit of wording here. When Jingliu uses an attack in the spectral transmigration state, she consumes HP from all other allies, HP equal to 4% of their respective max. So bear in mind, she doesn't consume her own, she consumes other characters' HP. Just bear that in mind when going and looking at other parts of her kit and comboing her with other characters. The technique is also pretty good, so after using it, you create a dimension around Jingliu that lasts 20 seconds, and all enemies in this dimension will become frozen. After entering combat, you immediately regenerate 15 energy and obtain one syzygy stack with a 100% base chance of freezing enemy targets for 1 turn, and then whilst they are frozen, they take a damage equal to her attack, 80%. Only one dimension can be created by allies and can exist at one time. Pretty good talent. Will you going to be using it as a generic thing? Probably not, as it's not going to be too useful, but if you're looking to, do hard content like the Forgotten Hall and you need that tempo for the syzygy stacks, then it's going to be pretty useful. And then finally, for her basic kit, we have the bonus abilities. Number 1, we got Frost Wraith. While in the spectral transmigration state, she increases her ultimate damage by 20%. Pretty generic, but when you're in the spectral transmigration state, the order of actions is going to be pretty important, using the ultimate first and foremost, and then going into the skill, just so you can, capitalize on efficiency. Going on to passive 2, or bonus ability 2, Sword Champion. After using Transcendent Flash, which is her generic skill, her skill 1 if you want to call it that, the next action will be advanced forward by 10%. It's not too powerful, 10% advance forward is not the craziest thing we've ever seen, but still it's a bonus nonetheless. And then bonus ability 3, Death Realm. while in the spectral transmigration state, increases effect resistance by 35%, which is, this one is actually probably the most powerful one, as whilst you're in the spectral transmigration state, you don't want to be CC'd because you're in your DPS mode and you want to be able to like send all your damage out at once. So having this effect resistance increase is really good because getting CC'd is bad. And that's the character as a whole. I will say this first and foremost, that she is an absolute unit without even talking about Eidolons, gear, light cones, any of that stuff. Absolute unit. Now, the biggest reason for this is obviously that talent. The talent by itself essentially says you will do a lot of damage regardless of the circumstances, and that damage will exponentially increase with the better gear that you have. Now, obviously, the 50% crit rate makes her a lot easier to build, or a lot more lenient to build, I should say. Not easier, but lenient. The stat requirement is not going to be super high when you're going into your damage or DPS mode, which is during this talent, the spectral transmigration state. So you maybe need 20% crit rate because then you plus 50 and you're already at 70. So it's pretty simple like that. And as well, it's pretty reliant on the rest of your team. So the rest of your team has to be pretty buffed up for you to get the massive bonus for Jingliu. So just having the character by herself is already extremely powerful, and the better you build her, the better she gets. So she's a pretty good character baseline, but as per usual, Eidolons make her better, and I've already read them, and let me tell you, they're pretty fucking good. Starting off with E1, Moon crashes Tingyuan Gate when unleashing her ultimate or enhanced skill. Jingliu's crit damage increases by just a flat 24% for one turn, which is already pretty powerful. But further, if only one enemy is attacked, the damage originally intended for adjacent targets will also be calculated against the current singular target, dealing ice damage equal to 100% of the damage the adjacent targets would have received. Now, that's a lot to take in, but simply put, this character is, on top of being an AoE damage dealer, or splash damage dealer I should say, she also becomes extremely powerful in single target damage with E1. You already have a crit damage increase, and then any damage that adjacent enemies would have taken if they are not there is transferred to the main target. That's pretty crazy. So E1 is already hitting home with massive power, but going further, E2, Crescent Shadow's Ching Dipper, I'm not sure how to say that, but after using her ultimate, increase the damage of the next enhanced skill by 80%, further pushing for the order of events to be very precise when using her spectral transmigration state, as you'll have to use your ultimate first and then the enhanced skill with E1, or sorry, E2, my apologies, because the 80% damage bonus is pretty crazy. So pretty good so far as well. Going further, E4, Lunar Lance shines Skyward Dome, very interesting name. While in the spectral transmigration state, the attack obtained from consuming allies' HP is additionally increased by 90% of the total HP that has been consumed from the entire team, and then also the cap for attack increased in this way increases by 30%, overall increasing the potential or the amount of attack she can get, as well as increasing the easeability, as also the percentage conversion of HP consumed is made better as well. So overall, massive attack increase as you'd expect. And then lastly, E6, Eclipse Hollow's Corporeal Husk. When Jingliu enters the spectral transmigration state, she immediately obtains one stack of Syzygy, which is pretty good right now. And then while she is in the spectral transmigration state, her crit damage is increased by a flat 50%. They weren't beaten around the bush when they made this Eidolon, so overall it's extremely powerful. You need 2 to enter the spectral transmigration state, and then upon entering you already gain 1 stack, so you're at 3, so you've got 3 attacks, or 3 skill usages I should say, of pure fat damage. A very powerful Eidolon. Now, it's really hard to come to a conclusion as what's the best value, as all of them have their own innate super high value, but I'm gonna again have to give it to E1, as it's the most diverse in what it does, but also extremely powerful, as it gives her a crit damage bonus just to make her a little bit extra juicy, but then also makes her very viable against single target damage, and also she is naturally good at AoE splash damage. So E1 is going to be my recommendation, but no matter what Eidolon you get her to, you're getting massive value. Light cones are a pretty simple and straightforward one. I shall be my own sword. Her signature is going to be her best in slot, as it does what she needs to be done, increases crit damage by a flat 20, and then when allies get attacked or lose HP, she gains 1 stack of Eclipse up to a total of 3. Each stack increases damage of the wearer's next attack by 14%, and then when 3 stacks are maxed out, the next attack she delivers will essentially ignore defense. Overall, it's built to her playstyle as she can drain allies' HP, and that will naturally give her max Eclipse stacks straight away, as 3 allies have lost HP. So, generally speaking, this one is going to be a highest value. That wasn't contentious at all. As for the other 5 stars, the Unreachable side is definitely her next best in slot, as generally speaking, the ability, just all of it functions for her. So, increases crit rate, increases max HP, and when the wearer's attack or HP is consumed, their damage increases by 24%. It's kind of a bit harder to get that last part, as she doesn't consume her own HP, but just one single hit will increase your damage. It is a bit more finicky, but it still will function absolutely the same. Brighter Than the Sun is similar to Unbreakable side, or the Unreachable side, my apologies. Same thing, you have crit rate, and then through some method you can get the rest of the bonuses. This way you have to use your basic attack. Now, Jingliu doesn't necessarily want to use her basic attack, but you will get these this buff straight away if you use your basic attack, and another one, then you have maximum buffage. And then further on the Fall of an Aeon is generically just the strongest you can use, just universally speaking, as you can get it to R5 quite easily. As for the other ladies, Clara's, I wouldn't recommend it. Generally speaking, it has aggro receival. You can get attacked a lot more. Now, it could work, but you don't get the bonuses from the other ability. Now, the little bit more contentious side is the actual 4 stars themselves. Now, my 3 recommendations are gonna be these: the Moles Welcome You, Under the Blue Sky, and Nowhere to Run. These light cones, generally speaking, have pretty easy to acquire and pretty universal buffs. They either buff attack or just straight up boost damage through some method. I do believe the Under the Blue Sky does buff crit rate, so you'll get a bit of a bonus there. Now, as for why I'm not recommending a specific one, which I believe is Arlan's one, is that Jingliu does not benefit from being at a lower HP threshold or a lower HP percent other than when wearing Arlan's light cone. So there's no reason for you to use that one. If you have any of the other ones, you're going to get a bit more bang for your buck there, because she doesn't have any innate reason to lose HP. So those are going to be my light cone recommendations. Out of the 5 stars, all of them function just fine, but obviously, as per usual, it's kind of a no-brainer to say that her signature is the best. And then for the 4 stars, the Moles Welcome You, Under the Blue Sky, or Nowhere to Run. Now, onto the gears themselves. You've got a bit of choice here, and I think it's pretty universal. You're going to be using Hunter of Glacial Forest, ice damage, and when you use the ultimate, increase crit damage by 25%. If you think about the general order of ability usage that you'll use with Jingliu when you enter the transmigration state, you're going to be using your ultimate first, unless you already used it to get into there, then obviously not. But if you get the transmigration state with just 2 skill usages, when you're in this transmigration state, you're going to use ultimate and then skill. It's going to be pretty generic like that. And then, as for why Rutilant Arena is on top, it may seem kind of odd because higher crit rate requirement, and also a basic attack and skill damage, whilst obviously Inert Salsodo is follow-up attack damage and ultimate damage, which also does a lot of damage for Jingliu. Now, the reason Rutilant is there is that to trigger the 70% requirement for the latter part of the 2-piece, you just have to have 20% baseline crit rate, because then you'll get that last 50% through the talent. And as the wording of the talent is, Jingliu gains 50% crit rate, during that mode she'll just have plus 50. So getting that last part of this set bonus is going to be a lot easier, and so it's going to be a lot more beneficial. So the top 2 are obvious answers: Hunter of Glacial Forest and Rutilant Arena. They're the most generic, or the most highest performing. But Inert Salsodo also will perform just fine, as your ultimate also does a lot of damage for Jingliu during the transmigration state, so you're also going to get a bit of value there. As for the other relic sets, I'm not sure about Musketeer of Wild Wheat. It is a bit more focused on basic attack usage, and you're not really there for the basic attack usage. As for the speed and attack, obviously it's beneficial. I wouldn't go for a break effect. I don't think there's any reason for it, as ice break effect is quite useless. And as for Space Sealing Station, it's a generic one, attack percent boosting. It's absolutely a-okay. Now, as for the actual main stats, these are, as you'd expect, kind of generic choices. Now, you will want crit rate, potentially, on the chess piece. I'm not too sure about that, as 50% is gained from the talent, and then you only need 20% through substats. So I'm not sure about crit rate on the chest piece. I would more so recommend crit damage if you have one. But if you want a bit more consistency, generally speaking, go for crit rate. Obviously, the 2 are interchangeable to some degree. As for the boots, speed is the obvious answer. Speed or attack percent, but early days speed will give you higher value. Ice damage boost on the sphere. As for the rope, energy regeneration rate is a bit of an odd choice, but being able to use her ultimate quite frequently is not a negative, but energy regeneration rate or attack percentage will generally give you higher value. I guess they're interchangeable according to Hakush. Now, character and team composition is probably the most subjective one, as it's kind of hard to come to a conclusion without playing the character, but as we know, Jingliu drains the HP of her teammates, and she is kind of centered around HP things. You're most likely to run her with other characters that benefit from either being low on HP or having their HP drained. A character that may be like this is Arlan, who benefits at being at lower HP thresholds to get a damage bonus. Or if you want a better version of Arlan, you've got something like Blade, who benefits from losing HP, as his general build is giving him bonuses from losing it, and then you switch to him and he does massive damage. But seeing as both of them are main DPSs, that team comp doesn't quite work, as, you know, well, you don't want to put all your points into, like, just 2 characters, or your skill points. So you're gonna probably want a few healers, or maybe 1 healer. The king of healing right now is Luocha. Luocha is just the best healer for every situation. There's no real argument about it. He heals just from everyone doing a basic attack, and his heals are quite monstrous. So he's gonna be the obvious recommendation, but just, you're gonna want a healer because the Jingliu mechanic of draining everyone else's HP, she's got no way of actually returning that HP, so once it's drained, it's gone. And so just naturally draining your team's HP is not a good idea, so you're gonna want a healer in your team. Doesn't matter which one, but obviously Luocha is gonna be the best. After that, it's kind of just any characters that have the HP loss mechanic, or scale with HP, or any generic buffer that can work with Jingliu. That's kind of the obvious answer, right? Because she is a main DPS, so Yukong, Bronya, and any debuffer, Payla, they all work just fine with Jingliu. And now, is there going to be a best in slot? Absolutely. Do I know the best in slot? Absolutely not. But any debuffing or damage increasing character will work absolutely fine with her, so don't worry about it too much. And that's been this rough guide of Jingliu. She is an absolute monster of a unit by herself, and is obviously made better with more characters that you have. I would recommend rolling for her if you just want a good unit. I myself will unfortunately be trying to get both Topaz and Jingliu, so I'm probably going to be miserable for the next few months. But hopefully you guys roll on her, and if you guys do roll on her, hope you guys get her. If you guys did enjoy the video, like and sub, and I'll catch you guys in the next guide.